to the Los Pollos Hermanos family.
What a villain Gus Fring is, right? I have no idea what the real drug world looks like, luckily, but I can absolutely imagine people like him existing. Calm, methodical, terrifyingly competent. The kind of person who never raises his voice, never looks messy, and still manages to be the most dangerous guy in the room. The same man who can calmly slit someone's throat and then straighten his tie like he's just getting ready for a meeting. For me, Gus Fring is the perfect antagonist for Walter White. He's everything Walt claims to be: patient, precise, in control, but without the ego and without the need to perform. Walt has to become Heisenberg. Gus just has to decide it's time to move. So in this video, I want to dig into why Gus feels so disturbing and what his presence really does to Breaking Bad and to Walter White's story. The best place to start with Gus is the first time he shows up. We're in Los Pollos Hermanos. Walt is waiting at the table. Jesse shows up late. They're both nervous, looking for this terrifying contact Saul has set up for them. And the man they think they're meeting never appears. Instead, a polite manager walks up to their table and asks,
Is everything to your satisfaction?
Fine, thanks.
On a first watch, my brain just files him as background. Friendly boss, nothing more. And that's exactly what he wants. Gus's real power isn't that he's scary when he's violent. It's that he disappears when he's calm. Later, when Walt comes back alone, the tone shifts. Gus refills his drink, sits down across from him, and for a moment, it feels like the same customer service routine. Then he drops the smile, locks eyes with Walt, and the whole scene changes temperature. The first real thing he says is basically a performance review.
Your partner was late, and he was high.
That line tells you how Gus sees people. He doesn't call Jesse a junkie. He doesn't shout. He doesn't posture. He just states the facts. Late, high, unreliable. He's already turned Jesse into a risk column on a spreadsheet. And he does it in the tone of a manager explaining why someone isn't fit for the job. Not a cartel boss delivering a threat. That's Gus's mask.
You can never trust a drug addict.
Professional, precise, slightly distant. He stands straight but doesn't try to dominate the room. He smiles, but the smile almost never reaches his eyes. He listens more than he talks. When he finally speaks, every sentence is short, measured, and useful. No wasted motion, no wasted words. And that's why his violent moments land so hard later. The box cutter, the quiet promise to kill Walt's entire family, the tiny flash of hatred in front of Hector, all of that hits harder because it comes from someone who spends most of his screen time pretending to be harmless and reasonable. On paper, Gus is hiding in plain sight. What the show really does is flip a switch in your head. It takes all the behaviors we usually read as safe, polite, controlled, professional, and uses them as the costume of the most dangerous man in the story. That's the mask we're going to be peeling back for the rest of the video. If the mask is what we see in the present, the next step is to look at what the show lets us know about Gus's past, and, more importantly, what it refuses to explain. Inside Breaking Bad, we really get two big windows into who he was before Los Pollos: Hank's investigation and the flashback with Max and Don Eladio. Let's start with Hank. When Hank finally puts Gus on the board, the picture looks perfect. Successful businessman, clean record, community work, respectable fronts. It's almost too neat. And then he hits Chile. Nothing. No school records, no family, no paper trail. Just a blank stretch of life. Mike even says that before the mid-'80s, it's like Gus doesn't exist. For a character this meticulous, that emptiness feels deliberate. It's like the writers are saying, there was a whole other story here, but you don't get to see it. What we do see is that flashback by the pool. Gus and Max come in as businessmen with a pitch. Max isn't just the cook. He talks as an equal. He believes in what they're building together. And within seconds, Hector shoots him in the head as a message. Max's body hits the tiles, blood in the pool, and Don Eladio tells Gus the line that basically defines his invisible backstory. "The only reason you're still alive is that I know who you are." That one sentence opens the door to all the fan theories, because the show never explains it. So over the years, fans have tried to fill the gap. One of the most popular ideas is that Gus was connected to Pinochet's regime in Chile, not necessarily as a general, but as someone from a powerful, protected family, or a bureaucrat with ties to the military, or even to foreign intelligence. That would neatly explain two things at once: why Don Eladio doesn't dare kill him on the spot, and why his Chilean records are basically wiped. Other people push the idea further. Maybe he's the son or relative of someone very high up, the kind of person you don't just make disappear without consequences. Some speculate about intelligence or CIA links. Others just see him as part of a wealthy, treacherous family who bought him that protection. The show never confirms any of this, and that's important. If they wanted Gus to be the ex-general or the CIA guy, they could have said it explicitly. Instead, they leave us with fragments. A ghost file in Chile, a partner whose education he paid for, a Don who knows who he is and decides he's too valuable to kill, and a man absolutely shocked by Max's death, clearly not yet used to that level of brutality. You can read his motives in two ways at the same time. Emotionally, Max's execution breaks something in Gus. From that moment, he becomes a revenge machine. Everything he builds afterwards is ultimately aimed at Hector, at Don Eladio, at the cartel that humiliated him. Strategically, even before that, he already thinks like a businessman. The way he talks about their product, the way he pitches it, the way he's dressed. This is someone who was wired for expansion and control long before he became the Chicken Man. The series doesn't force you to choose. It lets both readings coexist. And honestly, I think that uncertainty is part of what makes him so unsettling. With Walt, you can trace the line from underpaid teacher to Heisenberg pretty clearly. With Gus, there's a whole erased life sitting behind that calm face. The less the show explains, the more it feels like there's another, even darker story off-screen that we're never allowed to see. What is clear is that his past explains two of his core traits. His obsession with patience. He's willing to spend years playing the obedient partner, slowly moving pieces until he can wipe out the cartel in one move. His need to control every variable. After watching Max die because he misread the power dynamics at that pool, Gus becomes the man who never misreads a room again. So when we meet him in the present of Breaking Bad, calm, polished, apparently harmless, there's all of that sitting under the surface. A blank file in Chile, a body by a pool, and someone who decided that from now on, he would never be the weakest person in the room. That invisible history is what turns him from polite businessman into the kind of villain who doesn't just survive chaos. He builds an entire system to make sure the chaos belongs to him. And you really see that system in action when you look at how Gus actually solves problems in the series. Most criminals in Breaking Bad confront problems emotionally. Tuco screams, punches people without warning, and flies into random fits of rage the second he feels disrespected. The Salamanca cousins don't even bother talking. They just walk toward their target until something dies. Their power comes from being unpredictable. Gus is the opposite. He doesn't remove emotion from violence because he's a robot. He removes it because feelings get in the way of clean solutions. The best example is the cousins and Hank. From the cousins' point of view, it's simple. Tuco is dead, Walter is responsible. Walter dies. From our point of view, if these two monsters reach Walt, the show is over. But Gus doesn't react like a protector. He reacts like a strategist. He doesn't say, "No, you can't kill him." He says, "You're looking at the wrong man." He points them to Hank, the guy who actually pulled the trigger. That little adjustment does a ridiculous amount of work for him at once. Walt stays alive and keeps cooking. The cousins still get their revenge, so they don't turn on Gus. The attack on a DEA agent triggers a political earthquake that lands on the cartel. Gus gets to watch two of his biggest problems collide. He still manages the details. He has someone tip Hank off just before the attack, which gives Hank a chance to fight back. One cousin dies immediately, the other later in hospital. The cousins are gone, the cartel is weaker, and Gus never has to fire a gun on screen. You see the same pattern with Juan Bolsa. On paper, Bolsa is a partner. In reality, he's another layer of control from the old cartel world. He limits what Gus can do and ties him to a structure that doesn't suit him anymore. So Gus leaks just enough information for the authorities to find Bolsa, and suddenly Bolsa dies in a shootout with law enforcement. Another obstacle erased with one indirect move. And then you get to the pool. He doesn't just poison Don Eladio. He poisons everyone in that courtyard, and he drinks the same tequila himself. That only makes sense if he's calculated every detail: dose, timing, escape. While they're laughing and celebrating, he's already thinking about the exit route. By the time bodies start dropping into the water, the outcome is decided. Eladio gone, his lieutenants gone. The old power structure wiped out in an afternoon. It looks dramatic, but from Gus's point of view, it's just the most efficient way to reset the board. Compared to that, Walter looks almost amateur. Walt thinks he's that kind of mastermind. He likes to see himself as the careful planner in the room. But if you look at his big decisions, they're full of panic and ego. Running over the dealers in the street because he can't stand waiting. Poisoning Brock to manipulate Jesse. Picking fights because someone bruised his pride. Gus doesn't need people to know how smart he is. He just needs the result to look like the natural outcome of the situation. That's why the box cutter scene is so important. On the surface, it feels like Gus finally snapping. He walks into the lab in total silence, changes into a hazmat suit, picks up the box cutter, and kills Victor right in front of Walt and Jesse. It looks like an explosion of pure brutality. But if you break it down, it fits perfectly with the way he thinks. Victor has been seen at Gale's crime scene. He's now a walking piece of evidence. At the same time, Walt and Jesse have just proved they're capable of killing someone Gus needs. So Gus chooses the solution that sends the clearest possible message. Remove the compromised employee with zero hesitation. Make sure Walt and Jesse understand that he can kill anyone, personally, at any time, and then go straight back to business. He doesn't even bother to explain it. He just says, well, get back to work. For me, that's the moment where Gus stops being just the polite businessman villain and becomes something scarier. A person who treats lives the same way he treats inventory, and forces Walter White to become something much darker just to keep up. If you step back, that's really the difference between them. Gus is ego compressed into efficiency. Walt is efficiency constantly hijacked by ego. Gus builds a system that erases his fingerprints. Walt keeps trying to sign his name on it. Gus hides in a shirt and tie. Walt invents Heisenberg, the hat, the myth. One of them needs to be recognized. The other needs to be underestimated. And that gap is what turns their conflict into a slow-motion suicide mission for Walt. Before I wrap up, I just want to say thanks. The response to the first Breaking Bad video honestly blew me away. All the comments, subs, and likes literally helped me get YouTube partner, and made it feel like this channel might actually go somewhere. So if you enjoyed this one too, feel free to like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what character or episode you'd like me to cover next. All that's left to say is get ready, because 2026 is going to be packed with new videos.